Churche Hall in Nantwich was built by local merchant Richard Church in 1577. Over the centuries it's been used for a variety of purposes, including a cowkeeper's store, although now it's a restaurant. Cutlery moved, crockery fell off the tables on the floor, and the lights were switched on and off without any sort of human intervention. The paranormal activity in the mansion is said to be caused by three residents' ghosts: the spirit of a Civil War cavalier, a girl wearing 19th century style clothing, and the ghost of William Church, the father of Richard. On one occasion during a wedding reception, two bridesmaids who were climbing up the stairs passed two girls who were dressed in a manner which made them think they were also bridesmaids, but for another wedding. When they returned to the ground floor, they looked around, but they could see no sign of the other girls or any evidence of another wedding party. They mentioned this observation to the bride, who asked the proprietor whether another wedding would be sharing the restaurant with her own. He assured her that no such booking had been made. And when told of the mysterious girls on the stairs, he said, "Oh, they must have been a couple of our ghosts." The Railway Hotel in Nantwich is also said to be haunted by many people who have witnessed strange goings-on. When Nigel and Jane Hobson acquired the tenancy in 1993, they were unaware that it was haunted. The Hobsons, who had 4 daughters, soon began to feel sudden cold spots that occur around the place. They also realised that small objects, which occasionally disappeared from their private quarters, pens, keys, coasters and the like, usually reappeared a day or so later. The stools stacked for the night in the bar are sometimes found to be unstacked by the following morning. It was about 2 months after they moved into the pub that Jane first saw an apparition. One night she awoke and saw a girl standing in the doorway, wearing a loose white cotton dress-looking garment. Thinking of one of her 4 daughters was sleepwalking, Jane slipped out of bed as soon as she moved. The girl turned and walked away. Jane followed her along the passage, but lost sight of her when she turned a corner. She checked on her daughters and found them all to be asleep. 3 or 4 months later, Jane went into the Hobsons' private lounge and saw 3 small children huddled together on the floor by the fireplace. She just had time to note that they were wearing plain loose clothes before they disappeared. These sightings all took place in the Hobsons' private quarters. Just one apparition has been seen in a public area of the Railway Hotel, but it does return from time to time. Described as the figure of a pale-faced man wearing a mackintosh and a bowler hat, he stands in the corner of the bar. He's been seen by both members of staff and customers. 2 of the residents' ghosts are believed to be those of Walter Jones, a landlord of the hotel in the 1940s, and Fred Roberts, a former engine driver. One of the most famous photographs of all time was taken in the library of Combermere Abbey. Hack Green Nuclear Bunker near Nantwich is a secret bunker. It was opened to the general public in 1998 to serve as a museum, and since then both staff and visitors alike have experienced a range of strange happenings. In room 9, a telecommunications section, a beautiful young woman spectre is regularly seen working. There's also an intimidating masculine energy in the room. Old phones have been unplugged for years, can still ring. Others see a man dressed in a period uniform or felt uncomfortable in the bunker, as well as being pushed in the theatre area. There have also been 2 apparitions reported in the same corridor, and staff say they're very much menacing feel to the area. Several visitors have fainted in the area as a result of the negative energy. Crewe Station opened in 1837 and is one of the most historically significant railway stations in the world. Indeed, it's where I regularly spent Sunday mornings as a teenager, attempting to get home from Wigan Casino. It's alleged to be haunted, so haunted that the former station master, Sheila Breeze, refused to work there. Throughout its history, there have been reports of the patter of children's footsteps, a phantom cat, and there's said to be a general feeling of unease in the North subway near the old lift that was rumoured to have once been used by Queen Victoria to access a secret private tunnel. Crewe Lyceum Theatre has reports of a woman wearing white, a playful poltergeist and a sinister spirit. With reported sightings for at least 50 years, the lady in white is believed to be the spirit of a ballerina who killed herself in the dressing room. She's been spotted on stage and in the circle, and visitors have been said to smell lavender in her presence. A hooded figure has been spotted in the cellar, said to be linked to the original chapel, whilst a playful spectre, Charlie, likes to hide stage props. A third ghost is that of a lost child, who is seen wearing period costume and is attracted to other children. A more sinister energy lurks backstage, potentially responsible for the 1910 fire. The paranormal activity at the Lyceum was said to have been so bad that in 1969 an exorcist was called in. I recall going to see A Taste of Honey with the school at the theatre, but the only untoward events were a friend getting frisky with a girl from a local school and a fight in the toilets during the interval between my school and a local school. When we got back to Shrewsbury, teachers applauded us for not joining in, when I seem to recall that we were the instigators. As this was a few years after The Exorcist, I can only think that they encouraged more playful spirits. At Audlem, an entity manifested twice to the same witness, exactly a year separating the sightings. While driving down the road, the witness spotted the strange-looking figure on the right side, who stared into the car as he drove past. But the figure did not appear in a rear-view mirror. Sandbach's older Hall Hotel dates back to around 1656 and is a Grade 1 listed building. It's one of the most haunted places in Cheshire, with a total of 14 different spirits said to haunt it. It's very common for guests at the hotel to feel themselves being pushed under water when taking a bath, whilst others report waking up at 3 a.m. convinced that the room is on fire. One of the most frequently spotted ghosts at the Old Hall Hotel is that of Sir John Radcliffe, who was the original owner. He appears as a tall man in 17th century attire. There is also a grey lady, yet another grey lady who is so common in my native Shropshire, who is said to be searching for a child, something that ties in with the house, since a baby skeleton was found inside the wall during renovation. Some of the spirits present include a dog, a cat, a dog, several children, and an old lady in a rocking chair, and a figure in a beekeeping uniform. Hillhouse Sandbach is now a care home for the elderly, but was once a private home that was turned into a sanctuary for the elderly over the years. And many people who've worked there have reported seeing apparitions. Chandeliers have been known to move dramatically, not a movement caused by a light breeze, but enormous swings, seemingly on their own. One particular corridor housed the mortuary, and carers and nurses have never liked to go to that part of the building. Story has it that someone hung themselves off that very corridor. Who they were is unknown, but their spirit is believed to haunt that said corridor. The old star at Dover has had a fair share of tragedy. In 1906, the licensee was Joseph Fletcher. Joseph was a married man and lived at the pub with his wife Elizabeth, and while there they started to raise a family. For the licensee, caring for a pub in a quiet part of Dover was not too difficult. The pub was a happy one and catered for farmers from the area, people using the Nantwich road, and people from the cottages along the lane. But as time went by, Joseph became less and less pleased with his fate. On April the 7th, 1913, Joseph tied one end of his scarf around a cast iron bedpost and the other end around his neck. He died, and it was his son Harry who found him. The family remained at the pub, and Elizabeth, his wife, took over the licence. The spectre of tragedy, however, has not left the building with the death of Joseph. His wife Elizabeth married again, but shortly after fell down the cellar steps, causing a severe head injury, from which she died in hospital a short time later. Years passed, and in August 2002, Deborah Caper and her partner Mark Massey arrived with their children, Chelsea and Ashley. But the building had some shocks in store. At the wonder one night, they set about tidying up. Sometime after 1 a.m, they went up to their private quarters and checked on the children. Mark turned out the day's takings onto the table to cash up. He was sitting with his back to an open door that led onto the landing. Deborah was sitting opposite. As he looked up from the pile of loose change, the look on Deb's face sent a cold shiver through him. The sensation was both physical and mental. Physical because the room had suddenly gone very cold, and mental because the look on Deb's face was one of sheer terror. In all the time he'd been together, he'd never seen her like that before. Slowly she started to speak. "Please, Mark, tell me that Ashley has just walked along the landing to the toilet." Mark had heard nothing, but could see that Debs was very frightened. He walked out onto the even colder landing and went to Ashley's bedroom. His son was fast asleep. Returning to the kitchen, he saw that she had not moved. "You're scaring me, Debs. What is it?" And a reply came out hesitantly. A young boy has just walked along the landing. I saw him clearly. He was dressed in floor-length, old-fashioned nightshirts." Slowly she turned to Mark. "I've never believed in ghosts. I thought it was all rubbish. But now I think I saw one." Again the hairs stood on the back of his neck. Although he had not seen anything, he suddenly felt in a drop in temperature, and he believed her. Mark made a full search of the building, but all was in order. When he returned, Debs told him that the boy had collar-length dark hair that covered most of his face. She also said that she did not feel threatened at all, and that they both noticed that the temperature in the kitchen had returned to normal. Had a child fitting the description died in the building? Well, maybe, but it wasn't young Harry Fletcher, who found his father after his suicide, as he died of old age in America. At Wharton Lock Bridge, a hooded figure crossing the bridge was spotted by a witness as she closed the gate. The woman's husband, travelling under the bridge at the time, did not see anything, but he felt immense sadness and experienced a tingling on his face at the same time. Hartford Hall Hotel dates back to the 17th century and has formerly served as a nunnery and a manor house. Guests and staff have reported seeing the ghost of a nun. She's supposed to have been killed when she was bricked up into a wall at a nearby abbey. Alternatively, the nun met her end after being smashed against a wall in an adjacent nunnery. The nun is held responsible for all sorts of unexplained happenings around Hartford Hall Hotel. Northwich Bingo Hall is reported to be haunted. At Barnton, a black woman with a veil, spotted several times walking the roads in the village during the early hours of the morning, became a talking point. Also at Barnton, a witness described seeing an apparition returning from market with her pony and cart, described it as a large white thing. At Bathomley, a lady in white haunts the field, while the road nearby is home to a phantom dog. Priestley Fields in Congleton has been derelict since the 1960s, and it's believed that the property was or is owned by the Loudon family. The reason the property has not been lived in for around 40 years is that poltergeist activity forced the previous family from the house, and it's remained unoccupied ever since. In Priestley Fields there are 3 dwellings. The resident of one reported seeing the ghost of an elderly woman sitting at the end of the bed, brushing her hair. She also claimed that she was unable to see her reflection in the wardrobe mirror. Also, on occasion, she felt a tap on the shoulder with no one present. The middle property was for sale, and although the property is locked up, all the windows were found to have been opened one morning. The estate agent had to be called out to close them all and secure the property. Dane Mill, also in Congleton, has been let as factory units. Other parts of it remain empty and deserted. At the back of the mill, overlooking a single storing factory unit with a metal fabrication business, and at the top window of the mill, a ghost of a young girl has been seen staring out. She's seen by many people who work in the area. It feels as though they have seen her, as if she is watching them from high above. The mill used to be used as a silk mill. Whether or not they used young children to work here is not known. However, the ghost of a young boy 9 to 10 years old has also been seen in the mill. Whether or not these children died here under tragic circumstances is open to speculation. About 1.5 miles from Congleton, you get to Somerford Park Farm. Before you come to the main entrance, you pass an old entrance which has been sealed up. This is an old access and carriageway which divides into 2. The one leads to Hartford Hall, and the other leads to Somerford Chapel. According to legend, it's probably around the turn of the century when the local doctor named Mr. Picton was called out to Somerford Hall to attend a sick young girl who was about 11 to 12 years old. It was then that the doctor's horse and carriage entered the old carriageway, leading to the hall, that the driver stopped the carriage, thinking that he'd struck the young girl. But after searching for the young girl, no trace could be found. Upon arriving at the hall, the doctor learnt that a young girl had already died of her ailment. Could it be that the driver had witnessed the spirit of the girl, which moment ago had left her physical body? As a last note, 2 women sighted the ghost of a young girl at the old carriageway entrance some years ago, so perhaps her spirit still haunts the spot. On the outskirts of the town of Congleton and along the A34 road, close to Little Moreton Hall, can be found a small road known as Watery Lane. The origin of the name of this lane is unknown at the present time. However, if you follow it for approximately 1 mile, you'll come to a tunnel which runs under the canal, which is part of the Cheshire Ring. About 100 yards from the tunnel entrance on the right-hand side of the road is a small lay-by. It is more of a passing point, as the tunnel is only wide enough to take 1 car at a time. It was at this lay-by that a person was pulled in with their vehicle one night. It's not known how long they stopped there, but presumably it was enough just to let another vehicle pass. It was while they were parked that they experienced this poltergeist activity. It started with the vehicle being rocked from side to side, with no one and nothing nearby, and it ended with something hammering on the roof of the car, again with nothing visible.